Hey, this is Dan Adams.
And Brian Gongol.
And this is the WHO Radio Wise Guys post-show party.
That's what Dan's trying to call it. I don't think that name's going to stick.
I like that. That's what we're now going to call our after-show show, where we record this little video and we put it up on YouTube. So if you're watching this, that means you found it. Thank you.
Congratulations. I think it's a totally inadequate name.
Okay, well, we'll work on that. And, of course, we'll take suggestions from our viewers and listeners, too. So
I guess we will.
All right, let's move along here then. Some things that we didn't get a chance to cover on the air today. Google is giving 20% back to the crisis in Japan. And what this basically means is that Google, they do things a little bit different. And what they allow their employees to do is spend up to 20% of their time, their work time,
right.
So basically 1 day a week, working on projects just for anything. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. You could sit in your cubicle and play solitaire.
I don't think that no, I don't think that's true.
I think they do.
It's so they can do independent projects of their own. They're trying to develop new things. It's Google's way of trying to spur innovation.
It is, and it works. One of the things that they did was they created this thing called the Person Finder, which is this website where after major international crises like the earthquake in Haiti and now the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, that people can go post on this website, say that they're looking for a specific person, and if you have information about that person, you can go on that website also. It's helping people connect. And this whole project was created a year ago, right after the earthquake in Haiti, by a small group of Google engineers who thought up this idea and went to their manager and said, we need to work some extra on this and try to make this happen. And their manager said, yeah, go for it, not a problem. So what they did was they just gathered together about a dozen guys for about 3 days solid and created this, it's basically a website that interacts with a bunch of different databases to help link people together after major crises. This is a really cool thing. I think this is a great thing that Google's doing.
I was trying to bring it up over here on the internet, and in the meantime it wasn't working out so well.
Well, you're trying to do it with one hand, too, so that might have something.
Yeah, that doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting that they have that.
Yeah, so I think that's a great thing that Google's working on. And
see, I'm trying to go over here and check it out myself anyway. The Google Person Finder. Interesting.
I read somewhere they have a link to it on their main page.
Yeah, here. If you go on to google.com, and obviously not a lot of people in Iowa will most likely have use for it, but maybe people abroad might. Resources to help with the crisis in Japan there right at the top. It actually redirects people to their google.org project, Google Crisis Response, and so they do have that option. And right down here is, in fact, the Person Finder. So that's right there on the main page. If you're trying to find people, you can either click on looking for someone or you have information about someone. And if you have that detail, you can put in the person's name, parts of their name, or their mobile phone number to try to locate them. Now, this does go back, though, to a thing that we've talked about before here on WHO, which is that you should always have two means of getting back and forth to people who are looking for you in an emergency. Number one, you have to have a push method. Number two, you have to have a pull method. By push, I mean you need to have a way to spread the word to people that might be looking for you in case of a disaster that you're okay. You also need to have a way that they can reach you to ask if you're okay in the process. Having one of each of those, I say, is pretty essential.
It is very important, but when you're in a situation like that in Japan, when all of a sudden you have no power, no electricity, communications are down, it takes time.
It does.
It just takes time. And the Person Finder website for the Japanese quake and tsunami actually went live an hour after the quake happened, which is the fastest time ever for something like that kind of response. And again, hats off to the engineers at Google for doing that.
Exactly. So google.com, and if the link is gone by the time you see this video, google.com/crisisresponse will get you to their main page for crisis responses, and at the top they do have the items there for Japan. Anyway, of interest to most people, I think. Moving on. Apple's smartphone satisfaction rating. Go ahead, Dan.
Well,
just ooze over Apple like you usually do.
It's no surprise that for the fifth year in a row, or for the fifth time in a row, Apple has, topped the rankings with the most satisfied users of smartphones out there. People love their iPhones. I'm a huge Apple fan. I don't have an iPhone. I have this thing. It's a Droid X.
Right.
It uses an Android phone in
You're pretty
like
satisfied with it, yeah?
Well, I like it. I'm satisfied with it. I don't love it. I'd rather have a really nice iPhone, but I'd like to have an iPhone that meets more of my requirements than the current ones do. So,
okay.
You know, and it's rumored that the iPhone 5 is coming out this summer, and we'll see what happens there. But
And in fact, I still continue to use a Palm for business purposes, as well as the Droid on which I'm recording this now. So I personally am, you know, not all that surprised. I'm guessing a lot of people who use Apple products are inclined to like them a lot, whereas people who use non-Apple products are more inclined to complain about not liking them because, well, that's just what we're used to, and that's okay.
I think I'm a pretty objective person, though. I think I'm pretty objective when it. What do you laugh? Don't laugh at me. I think I'm pretty objective.
Well, okay.
When Apple does something great, I applaud them for it, and when they do something stupid,
You just avoid talking about it.
I do not.
In fact, we'll prove that you don't because there's been a problem recently with iPad glass and light problems.
You know what? I just read about this week. You know, the iPad 2 started shipping a week ago, and it's sold out. You can't get your hands on one of these things right now. And there's a concern that the glass, you know, they made the iPad 2 a lot thinner than the original iPad.
That's your gesture.
This is my internet. This is the thinner.
Gotcha.
And so the glass is thinner, and there's a concern now that because that glass is so thin that it may break more easily. We haven't seen this yet, but we'll keep an eye on it and see if that does happen. I've also read an article this week called light leakage with the iPad 2, where in the manufacturing process, the glass and the plastic case of it, the bezel comes up and around, and where they meet, they're not joined as well as they could be. And you actually have light that leaks through there. And I haven't heard a whole lot about that yet, but I just read this article the other day. So we'll keep our eye on those things too. And actually, that light leakage issue is a concern of mine. If my wife actually does find an iPad 2 and buys one, that's one of the first things I'm going to take a look at.
I don't even know how you would control that, but
you can't. It has to go back, and you have to get a different one.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
But I don't know what Apple's response is going to be to this. We haven't heard anything out of Apple yet about this. So
I don't know either.
Okay.
Enjoying March Madness.
It is March Madness. You know, March I say is the
suppose.
transition month for springtime or winter into springtime.
Right.
And it's also basketball season playoffs. So it is March Madness. I have an article here that a professor of marketing at Washington University in St. Louis suggests that when you make a bet on a game, you're less likely to enjoy that game. I say only if you lose that bet.
No, I think it's because people worry about the game while it's going on, and they're worried about it more than just in an artificial way. You know, just hey, I either want them to win or lose. It's very real when you have money on it. And I don't recommend sports betting anyway, so that's just me.
I highly recommend sports betting and all other kinds of gambling. And the article here says it's basic psychology. If you lay down a bet for a team to win and you feel jittery and anxious as you watch, it just goes to prove that we are our own worst enemies.
Well, if you really want to secure it and you want to bet correctly, what you would do is bet against the team that you want to win, because that way you win something either way. Either you win money or you feel happy about having won.
That's the worst strategy I've ever heard from you.
It's the most rational strategy.
I can't believe you just said that.
Doesn't mean anybody's going to do it. That's all right. Anyway, that's trying to enjoy March Madness, we suppose. One last thing here. If you do want to help out with the Japanese earthquake relief, we mentioned last week you could go to redcross.org. You could also go to usaid.gov, usaid.gov. That's a way that you can help out as well. That's the U.S. government agency that coordinates American relief efforts. If you have money you want to donate, or you have perhaps products or services you can offer that you wish to donate to the process, you can do that as well. So USAID, USAID.gov.
Yes.
We're the WHO Radio Wise guys.
I'm Dan Adams.
And interestingly, before I point out, and I'm Brian Gongol, but I'd like to point out that you're wearing this very gold shirt today. I presume not in a Hawkeye fashion, but rather in an Iowa State kind of fashion.
It was the first thing I grabbed as I got out of bed late this morning.
Okay, but it is like an Iowa State kind of thing. It's an Iowa State gold, you would say, right?
Sure. Okay.
Well, you know, cardinal and gold.
Okay, yeah, gold.
Okay. I'm pointing out here that our producer across the glass there, Steve Bailey, is wearing an Iowa Hawkeye sweatshirt. And meanwhile today, I'm wearing UNI. So we've got all 3 state universities covered here in the studio today, completely unintentionally, because if we could coordinate our clothing intentionally with any degree of reliability or satisfaction.
You can't see it, but I have a WHO radio T-shirt on underneath the sweatshirt.
Oh, okay, well, if we could do that with any kind of coordination, we would probably not be doing just a 1-hour show.
That would be too much for us.
It would be far too much. But you can catch that 1-hour show Saturdays at 1 o'clock Central Time on News Radio 1040 WHO. It's 1040 on your AM radio dial if you're in central Iowa or really anywhere in the state. Or you can go to WHOradio.com and stream it live on the internet on WHO.
Hey, thanks for listening to our post-show party. I'm Dan Adams.
I'm Brian Gongol.
And we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening again.